Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Run in the Paint recap. I'm Miles here with Ben. Ben, how are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well once again.
Glad to hear it. We got our first team to punch their ticket into the NBA Finals last night, as in Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals, OKC did it again. They absolutely dominated defensively and destroyed the Timberwolves by 30. Final score 124 to 94 to beat the Wolves in 5 games and advance to their first NBA Finals since 2012. And Ben, heading into this game, I mean, the Thunder left no doubt. Right from the opening tip, you had a feeling that they were going to just dominate this game. And it started with their defense. They only allowed 9 first quarter points for Minnesota.
Yeah, it was just right from the start when OKC was so dominant. Just a unbelievable defensive performance in the first half. I mean, it's unbelievable if you only let up 9 points against your opponent in one quarter. That's just super impressive defensively, and OKC plays a smothering defense. They forced turnovers from the jump and started to get things rolling offensively. So yeah, that made things pretty tough for Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, this is how you close out a series on your home court as a number one seed if you're OKC. Heading into this game, of course, chance to clinch the Western Conference Finals on your home floor to advance back to the finals for the first time in a while. And in the first quarter, and it just continued through on in the second quarter as well. Halftime break, 65 to 32. It was total domination in the first half. The Timberwolves tried to make a little run there in the third quarter. Julius Randle got it going a little bit, but overall, the Thunder just did an amazing job of specifically getting Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle frustrated and out of the game early on to where they got in such a big hole that any sort of run wouldn't really matter, throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, the Thunder, they just basically pulled away by like 20, 30 points, something like that, by the first half, to where it's just going to be so hard for Minnesota to come back. And they tried Minnesota, but they just kept on struggling all night. Like, the KC just had a lot of answers for them tonight. They knew what they were doing to close it out on their home floor, and the big freeze showed up once again for OKC. Chet, and Jade, the ball. Another great scoring game in that game for OKC.
Yeah, SGA with 34 points, leading the way once again, 7 boards and 8 assists. He was masterful, hitting some crazy tough shots. I thought Chet Holmgren was fantastic in this game on both ends. Some of the help defense at the rim by Holmgren, not even just the 3 blocks, but just deterring shots at the rim was incredible. J Dub gave you 19 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, shot 7 of 14 from the field. And all the other role players for them didn't need to have huge games on the stat sheet, but just had a crazy impact. Hartenstein played well when he started both halves. Caruso only had 8 points, made only one basket, but he was incredible once again. Cason Wallace, Lou Dort hit 4 threes. I mean, everyone who came in had an impact for this Thunder team. I mean, it was the perfect team win. That it's a really good feel good win for them to close out this series. And their defense and forcing turnovers really did the job. I mean, in the first half, I think what was it? Minnesota had maybe more turnovers than made field goals. I mean, there was a point where they had 14 turnovers to 10 made baskets. I mean, that is a horrible ratio in a game like this. And that, again, turning it over against this Thunder team is going to lead to problems.
Yeah, but I didn't know that was the stat of this game. That's embarrassingly bad for Minnesota. And yeah, we said yesterday's recap that of course the Thunder. I mean the Timberwolves shouldn't turn over the ball bunch. They want to win. And, well, they turned it over a lot. It still the kind of the same thing from game 4 that costed them. But I mean, gotta give OKC's defense credit. They're just so good once again at fooling Minnesota, forcing turnovers. That were caused by different guys on OKC.
Yeah, and they did a great job of just, I mean, rushing the Timberwolves, forcing them into just terrible situations. I mean, in that first quarter, they were 3 for 20 from the field, 1 for 9 from 3. Jaden McDaniels like open shot seemed to get in, the whole team's head there. And they were really stifled. I mean, they looked shook by the Thunder defense. I mean, the amount of turnovers that led to points, especially in the second quarter, was just absolutely unbelievable. It's weird to look in the final, stat line. OKC actually trailed the points off turnovers category by 1.19 to 18, but the points off turnovers for them was just so much louder than Minnesota's, and especially with that home crowd, it seemed like every time they forced a turnover, it led to a good shot. Even if it didn't go in, it led to a good 3-point shot, maybe led to free throws, led to a layup or a dunk. This was just an incredible performance, and the Thunder take care of business, man. They take care of business in this series quickly in 5 games. For Minnesota, another game where, look, Randall on the stat sheet looks pretty good, 24 points. Again, got it going in the second half. Didn't have that good of a game, or at least to start off, and that, like we've talked about this entire series, he really is the X factor, and when both Randall and Edwards are struggling like Anthony Edwards did in the first half, I mean, that's a complete disaster. You're gonna be down by 30 plus points at halftime.
Yeah, I was disappointed with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle the game 5. For two top guys, they just didn't show up at all. They just struggled, and I would have liked for Anthony Edwards to have seen him be more aggressive when he got the ball. What I saw from him today was just, I was disappointed with some of his shot selections, and each and he just really didn't score too much again. Game 5, and Randall, he couldn't score too much again either. Thunder's size and just how good they were playing defensively just made him really struggle again offensively too.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with the way Anthony Edwards played. It seemed like the kind of the way he was playing, it played right into the Thunder's hands of, all right, other players are turning the ball when we're trying to, make plays for them. All right, I'm going to try to do everything myself. And when you're playing one-on-one basketball against all defensive players like Lou Dort, J-Dub, even players who are good enough to, great defenders with Shea, Case, and Wallace across the board. I mean, the Thunder just play a ton of elite defenders throughout their lineup. When you play one-on-one basketball against them, it's going to lead to a tough performance like this, especially when it's your star player that is performing like this. But yeah, man, OKC, incredible dominance. Not a whole lot, not a lot much more to say. Overall, with this series, the Thunder getting it done in 5 games. Their only loss was that blowout loss in Game 3, but other than that, really convincing wins, the 3 games at home and then the close win in Game 4. What has impressed you the most, or what did impress you the most about the way that the Thunder were just able to really dominate this series?
But I think I was pretty impressed that yeah, they were just so good defensively throughout most of the series to where you know, Anthony Edwards or like Julius Randle or anybody on the Timberwolves is like really like amazing in this series. Nobody for the Timberwolves is amazing in this series, and a lot of times guys were struggling in the Timberwolves. I think the Thunder, would be doing that well in the series. I thought the Thunder were going to win the Western Conference Finals, but thought the Timberwolves were going to do a bit better than they did. So I was kind of disappointed with how Minnesota did in the conference finals, but OKC there they did a great job of taking care of business. They took care of business the way they needed to, throughout this series, and they did a phenomenal job of closing things out in front of the home crowd in Game Five.
Yeah, I'd probably say their defense, as well. I mean, they've been playing like this all season long, but against a guy like Anthony Edwards, causing him to struggle much in these, important games in the latter parts of this series. It was disappointing from his part as an emerging superstar in the league who has been playing great, obviously, but not so much in the later games in this series. Offensively, I was really impressed with how well and easily they were able to score, especially at home, but also in that game four win, against this Minnesota defense, because the Timberwolves a very good defensive team in their own right. But they've given up a lot of points to this Thunder team, and specifically the Thunder big three. J Dub and Chet both had really good series, along with the Western Conference Finals MVP Shea Gilgis Alexander. Want to give a shout out to Shea for taking that home, but I mean, being able to score 114 in game one, 118 in game two, and then breaking 128, 124 in games four and five against this Timberwolves defense. Just really impressive. Absolutely incredible performance by OKC to get this series done and wrapped up. Here were our predictions of the series on the podcast. Ben, you and I both picked the Thunder in six. Nick had the Thunder in seven. Joey and Jackson that they would win this series in six, but none of us had the Thunder winning this quickly or as easily as they kind of ended up doing. And it was so huge that they're able to do this now that they get basically a full week of rest until game one of the finals, which is going to be at Oklahoma City. Game one of the finals, not till next Thursday.
Yeah, that rest definitely gonna be huge for the Thunder in the finals. What could be physical final series, and of course the Thunder, rest good, but stay prepared. Not get too rusty. Before the finals. But yeah, congrats to them on going to the finals. I mean, that's just huge for them. It's been good while since they had like Kevin Durant and Westbrook on their team when they last went to the finals, and finally it's started to show that their long rebuild is started to really pay off. That they did, and think seeing Presti now should be proud of all that work he's put in over the years. I think they have a good shot coming up this year in the finals. They're just such a good team, and it's going to be hard for probably the Pacers, who will probably make the finals, to score on them. They're so good defensively.
Yeah, it definitely was, a great performance by them, and it is huge to get all this rest going into that series against potentially the Pacers, who will still have to wrap things up tonight in their game five. We'll get to that in a little bit. We'll potentially have a full week to really preview and dissect the 2025 NBA Finals matchup. Before we move on to the East, Minnesota now heading into their offseason. Let's preview it a little bit here. Kind of an up and down season for them. Of course, it started off in crazy fashion where they traded franchise legend Carl Anthony Towns to the New York Knicks for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. After that trade gets made, not exactly sure how that would fare for the Timberwolves heading into the season, and it was kind of an inconsistent, regular season for them. I mean, there were stretches where they looked like that great team that made the Western Conference Finals last year and that won 56 games. But then they had other stretches where, they just weren't playing well at all. They weren't playing like a, legit title contending basketball team, but they found their stride at the end of the regular season and got some pretty favorable matchups, in these playoffs. 2 5-game series wins against the Lakers and then the Warriors before running into this Thunder team. What were your thoughts on the Timberwolves season now that they did end up making it back to the conference finals, season where their season it weren't sure if they'd make it back here.
Overall, I mean, I would say it was a pretty good season. Like, I mean, really successful that they made it back to the Western Conference Finals, even though, the regular season, it was up and down, but the way they bounced back in the playoffs was overall, impressive, and, they did pretty well in the playoffs up until they ran into OKC, and OKC was just, able to wear the team down. And, um, thinking back to the Randall Carl Anthony Towns trade, I think with the way things have played out in this playoffs, that I think it's been a win-win trade for both teams because the Knicks ended up making the conference finals over in the East, and you know that was exactly really where they needed the lift to. When they got Carl Anthony Towns, and Towns was able to help them get all the way there. Uh, Now they gotta try to come back from down 3-1 against the Pacers. That won't be easy for them. But um, yeah, I mean, a lot of people for a while first thought, you know, it was an L trade by the Timberwolves to get Julius Randle and DiVincenzo back in the deal for Carl Anthony Towns, but now more people are starting to recognize that, well, it's a win-win trade, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean it was definitely up and down, and you kind of talked about it in all those different ways, especially with the trade because I mean it was so iffy on whether or not it would if the Timber trade or anything like that or got out what they wanted to from the trade because DiVincenzo was pretty inconsistent with his shot in the regular season and definitely in the playoffs. Randall was injured to start the year, but throughout the year, he started to find his way with this Timberwolves team, playing a little different style of basketball, not being the guy that has to take a bunch of shots, being more of a facilitator and becoming more efficient. And that led to him having a very decent playoffs this year. Averaged 22 points per game in the postseason on over 50% shooting. I mean, pretty good. So I think that it did work out for them. It's interesting going into the season after the Wolves made the conference finals last year, and then making this trade. A lot of us did have them finishing high up in the regular season. Like there were on this podcast, I just went back to see there were some of us on here. I was the lowest on the Wolves on the podcast. I had them finishing fourth in the West. But everyone else had them finishing like top three, top two with only OKC, as OKC and Minnesota being the top two teams. And strangely enough, even though Minnesota finishes as the sixth seed, they finish, these two teams finish as the last two standing in the Western Conference. So it's just funny how that turns out, you know.
Yeah, that made season predictions too. For the season, I think I had them like top four somewhere, something like that. But I know not one. Of course, I had OKC one like a lot of other people, and I was totally correct about that. Um, but I mean, Minnesota. Yeah, I mean they didn't totally live up to that in the regular season. On the playoffs, they look back, I would say, to being like a top team in the Western Conference with the way they were able to get things going and making it all the way back to the Western Conference Finals. And it's gonna be an interesting offseason coming up for the Timberwolves. I don't know if they'll be able to afford to bring everybody back. What I've been hearing, they might have to move out. Someone will see, um, and I mean, um, who knows what moves will they look to make? To try remain pretty good going into next season. I've heard some rumors about maybe Kevin Durant even the Timberwolves. So I'm intrigued to see how the off season will go for that team as well.
Yeah, I mean they've got some decisions to make. Looking at their payroll here, basically all of their guys are back under contract for next season, but there are some key players that are going to have to make some decisions themselves. Julius Randle has a basically a $31 million player option to return next season. That's always kind of interesting. 31 million after a season like this. He is 30 years old. Do you think that Randall, again, $31 million player option after he had a pretty good playoffs, pretty good bounce back year? Do you think that he will accept the player option or maybe look to resurface a new sort of deal, maybe a long term deal with the Timberwolves or somewhere else?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm really not too sure, but if I had to guess, I guess more likely a long term deal sort of thing if the Timberwolves would agree to something like that. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a hard one to figure out, especially with the player option, it being 31 million. And figuring out if that's kind of the market for him. I think that it is personally the market. I don't think you could get much better than that for the way that he played. But that is something that'll be interesting to watch. But the two players that most likely will become unrestricted free agents are Nikhil Alexander Walker, who, had some decent games in the playoffs and in this series, was brutal in game 5 but was amazing in game 4. He's unrestricted on an expiring deal. He only made $4 million this season on his salary, so he's going to get a huge pay raise as a great defensive guard off the bench. But then the key guy, Naz Reid, has a $15 million player option, was the sixth man of the year last year, almost for certain that he's going to decline that and look to get some sort of payday. Will that be with the Timberwolves? Will that be somewhere else? I've had there are going to be some teams with cap space that could maybe look to bring him in and offer a starting job for Naz Reid. Because, I mean, he's an extremely talented player. I don't know if he wants to be bottled up in this sort of sixth man role or if the Timberwolves can even afford to pay him starter money, but as a six man, especially if they want to bring Randall back as well.
It'd be nice, I think, if you could somehow afford to bring back Nas Reed. He's been a fan favorite in Minnesota, and he's made a good impact for them. That's for sure. He's been able to play well on both ends of the floor throughout his time there, and he can give them a huge lift off of their bench at times, and um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go about Nas Reed. I really am not too sure what they'll exactly do about him, but I'm thinking, he's a guy that the Timberwolves want to try and bring back if they can. He's he's been a you know key guy for that team, I would say, over the last few seasons.
And a fan favorite in that Minneapolis community. So yeah, that's going to be important. I think that they want to team because that's where those questions become. Because at the end of last year, traded Carl Anthony Towns for Randall and DiVincenzo so that they wouldn't be a second apron team. If you were to pay both Randall and Nas Reed, if that were even possible, you would for certain, have the Timberwolves being a second apron team. So I don't know if the Timberwolves feel like they are that. Typically, if you're a second apron team, you want to be paying those tax bills because you are winning, you're going to the finals, going to, a championship caliber team. I'm not sure if they believe that this team is a championship caliber team, especially after, you know, I mean, 2 years they do go to the Western Conference Finals, but they end up in the same spot twice. Back to back years, they lose in 5 games in the Western Conference Finals last year to Dallas. This year, getting smoked by between these two teams, is what their mindset will be with bringing those guys back. And they want to bring this team back together. But even if, they aren't able to bring those guys back, they do have some solid young players in the pipeline that I think will get some good minutes for them next year with Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon. Shannon was good in the conference finals, getting minutes. And Dillingham was one of the top picks of the draft last year. Shows a lot of promise. I think he will eventually become their starting point guard of the future when Mike Conley is, eventually unable to really play anymore. He still has one more year on his deal, but they've got some other things they can do with some of the younger guys they have on their roster, but a lot of decisions to make for the Minnesota Timberwolves, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It it's not going to be easy even to get back to the Western Conference Finals next year, of course, for them because OKC will be back, of course. Then they're just going to be super good, I think, for the next multiple years again. And um, I think there's other teams in the West too getting better. Um, that will make things tough on them. Like the Spurs. If they can get Wemby back healthy, and or the Houston Rockets. I think the Rockets will be able to find a way to get even better this off season. And um, who
Yeah,
else
it's
really? The
it's going to be a
Mavericks should be able to get better again, get more healthy. Be interested to see how they can bounce back next season.
yeah, the Western Conference is not going to get any easier. Like you said, OKC is going to be back, to have a chance next year with your Houston's getting better. And those non-playoff teams as well with Dallas gonna probably get Cooper Flag. We'll see what other moves they can make. They'll have a full team. San Antonio, if they get Wemby back and trade for Giannis, then that's another team up there. And I'm high on the Portland Trailblazers. I think there are a lot of good teams out there in the Western Conference that'll make it tough. But of course, the Timberwolves do have one of the bright young stars in the NBA, bright young superstars with Anthony Edwards, who, let's see, man, it's only what, 24 years old, making his second straight Western Conference final. So he's only going to be getting better. Man, he's still only 23 years old. So excited to see what kind of jump he makes next year. But either way, lots of decisions for the Wolves, and huge congrats to OKC for making the NBA Finals, being the Western Conference champions. We'll be back soon to talk about, them heading into the NBA Finals against an opponent still to be determined. And maybe we'll have that figured out here tonight as we have game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals with the Pacers going back to New York City with a 3-1 lead, looking to clinch and advance to their first NBA Finals in 25 years. The Knicks back at MSG will look to stay alive and force the series back to Indy for game 6. That game tonight at 8 p.m. on TNT. Big storyline heading into this game, Ben, is the health of Carl Anthony Towns. We didn't really talk about a whole lot on the recap, but he got banged up at the end of the game, banged his knees with Aaron Neesmith, I believe, near the end of the game. And he's going to be questionable for game 5 at home. What are some key things you're looking for in game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals tonight?
uh, man, I think what I'm gonna be looking for will be, will the pieces come locked in, ready to go? I think, even though it's back on the road, MSG is a tricky place to play. I think just that the pieces come in locked in, ready to go. think they have a good shot at winning this game because I think when they're just focused and trying to do what they need to do, I just think they're the better basketball team than the Knicks and um could give the Knicks trouble in this game. But you know, for the Knicks, they just um need to come out strong, hopefully early on. I think, and um you need big games, hopefully from Brunson or Cat if Cat's able to go. Mitchell Robinson, he can't have another stinker. He's really got to make a great presence on the boards with the rebounding, make a big impact in this game too. I think if they want a good shot, especially with now Carl Anthony Towns being um banged up. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Game five in that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's do or die for the Knicks on their home floor. A place where they've honestly struggled at home throughout these playoffs. As weird as it is, they haven't been as great of a home team as a road team. So they need to try and take care of business, of course, to force this back to Indy. I think that Cat will play. He's banged up, but I'm sure he's gonna give it a go in the biggest game of the season on the line for the Knicks. I think that a couple big key one for New York come out and actually have a good start. The New York Knicks throughout this series haven't gotten off to the best starts in these games. The Pacers have kind of been playing from behind, or excuse me, the Knicks have been playing from behind in some of these games. So see if they can get off to a hot start. But also, if that does happen, can the Knicks play a full 48 minutes of basketball? Because the Pacers, so far in these playoffs, where I still think they have been the best overall team with how they have played in these playoffs, they've been on the same sort of trends here in these playoffs where in both of the first two rounds they lost game 3 and then won game 4 putting up a lot of points. They did that in this round as well. Game 5s in both of the first two series. They closed it out in game 5, but they got off to slow starts in both of the games. If you remember back in the first round and that incredible comeback against Milwaukee, they trailed by 20 points in the first quarter at home before they trailed by 19 in the first half, had to come back off to another great start so that they don't have to play from behind in a closeout scenario. Closeout games are always the toughest to win. And if the Knicks are the hotter team, if they can just stay the course and play a full 48 minutes of basketball, because against the Pacers, you need to play a full 48 minutes of basketball. You need to sustain both ends of the floor that same exact level in order to beat this team.
Yeah, exactly. Both teams gotta play at a high level, and the Knicks gotta hopefully feed off the home crowd and be nice for the Knicks. They can deliver. I mean, one win here at least in Game Five in front of their home crowd, but I mean, who knows? It's not like the Knicks have overall been great at home in the playoffs. They've lost some games at home in the playoffs, so it'll be an interesting Game Five. But obviously, can't wait for it.
Absolutely. Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals tonight, 8 o'clock on TNT with the Indiana Pacers. I still can't believe we're even saying that the Pacers are one win away from the finals, looking to clinch it in 5 games for the third straight series. Unbelievable run that the Pacers have been on. We'll see if it continues tonight. And then we'd have a whole week with no basketball while both of these teams rest before the NBA Finals. But excited for the game tonight. Hopefully, we get another good competitive game in that series because the West didn't give us a whole lot of those. East has though. So shout out to the Eastern Conference Finals for giving us some good competitive basketball. Leave a like, subscribe for more NBA today, and we'll catch